Misheard is very passive-aggressive, dramatic, erratic, unpredictable, very attention-seeking, very full of rage, really.
The Depp versus Heard defamation trial has placed heavy emphasis on Amber Heard's mental health.
In particular, her borderline personality disorder, or BPD, diagnosis. This has spawned undue scrutiny and prejudice against the millions of people who share her disorder. But BPD is a hugely varied experience. We sat down with Ashley Braziel, Lisa Glover, and Samantha Absher to learn about their journey with borderline personality disorder. What do their relationships look like? And what does the media get wrong about BPD? This is Your Body On, Living with Borderline Personality Disorder. What is borderline personality disorder?
Well, it's defined as a mental illness that significantly impacts a person's ability to regulate their emotions.
They tend to feel very overwhelming for us.
You can go from the top of the world to feeling like you just don't want to be here.
This can result in a lot of impulsivity, in a person not really getting a really clear sense of who they are, and all of this works together to really negatively impact their relationships.
While the symptoms of BPD vary from person to person, to get a diagnosis, one must exhibit at least 5 of the following 9 traits: intense fear of abandonment, a pattern of unstable relationships, lack of self-image, impulsive and self-destructive behaviors, intense emotional swings, extreme uncontrolled anger, paranoia, and self-harm or suicidal ideation. Describe your experience with BPD.
My personal experience with having borderline personality disorder is definitely centered around this idea of having really big feelings.
It's like a roller coaster. You never know what you're gonna get. One minute I can be perfectly fine, and then the next minute I'm triggered.
It's almost like you are watching yourself have these big emotional outbursts, and you would give anything to stop because you know it's not healthy. You know this isn't normal. This isn't how people behave.
After the explosion, you are so guilty and ashamed and embarrassed, and it hurts so bad.
My sense of identity is constantly changing. I'm always coloring my hair, wanting lots of tattoos, and then not wanting them at all. I'm constantly trying to figure out who I am.
I still struggle with being able to be at a 9-to-5 job long term. That is something that I still can't wrap my brain around.
I was really well into my 30s before I really started to discover who I am as a person and what I want out of life.
BPD usually starts in early adolescence and progresses through adulthood. Several factors can make an individual more susceptible to the disorder. Genetics play a role in 60% of cases. BPD patients have a small and hyperactive amygdala, the part of the brain that regulates fear and aggression.
I was exploding on my family constantly.
An emotionally unstable or abusive household can trigger these predisposed individuals. What is it like dating with BPD?
If you have a BPD person in your life, it can be exhausting to deal with that person. They have a lot of big feelings. They have a lot of big reactions.
We tend to feel like everyone is out to get us. We lash out if we're not managing our traits. It's very much a roller coaster for not only us, but the people that are in our lives also.
We have a huge fear of abandonment, so that could also create a lot of paranoia in relationships.
We often will act out of fear to keep that person in our life and go to drastic measures, which are not healthy by any means. It can often push people out of our lives.
I question, can I live with other people and my disorder and function in a way that is okay?
It's not an easy task, but it's not unmanageable. Knowing your partner and what they go through and trying to understand their diagnosis could be very helpful.
Maintain consistent, clear communication. Make sure that they know you're not going anywhere. Make sure that they know that they are appreciated and loved in your life.
The intensity of emotions for someone with BPD means these people love very deeply and passionately. What was it like getting diagnosed with BPD?
I wasn't looking for the diagnosis. I was just going for depression and anxiety. And to my surprise, I was diagnosed with borderline. It was the missing puzzle piece. For a long time, I felt like I was alone in how I felt. It finally felt like I was understood. I finally could get an idea of who I really was.
I felt this intense relief because my whole life I had known I was different. I knew that my feelings were bigger than other people's, and now I had a name for it, and I had something I could do about it.
It can be challenging to receive a diagnosis for BPD, as this ailment shares symptoms with many other mental health disorders. While it is not a frequent diagnosis, an estimated 1 to 4% of people has BPD, making it more common than bipolar depression and schizophrenia. 70% of all diagnosed BPD cases are in female patients. The disparity in diagnosis is due to how women and men display symptoms of BPD. Women usually internalize their intense emotional turmoil, often leading to anxiety and depression, while men tend to act out in bursts of anger and impulsivity. How is BPD treated?
A combination of medications and dialectical behavioral therapy. Something that kind of retrains your brain the correct way and puts in place those coping skills that you don't have to begin with.
Dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT, is a combination of physical and meditative exercises that targets 4 key areas affected by borderline personality disorder: mindfulness, emotion regulation, distress tolerance, and interpersonal relationships.
I also find that diet and exercise and sleep is so important. If I do not eat right, if I am not getting rest and sleeping, my BPD is much harder to control because my tolerance level is just so low.
With the right treatment plan, the symptoms of BPD can go dormant. Approximately 50% of patients make a full recovery within 10 years after receiving diagnosis and starting therapy. What are some common misconceptions about BPD?
Some common misconceptions that I hear about BPD as of lately, honestly, is due to the Amber Heard trial. That we're abusive, manipulative, cold.
Oh, you're just doing that for attention.
And that's not the case.
This is not something that we choose. This is something we live with.
We are very empathetic, and that's why we feel emotions so much more.
Amber Heard's actions are a reflection of her alone, and in no way represent everyone with BPD.
There is this really common misconception that if you have borderline personality disorder, that you can't have a successful career, that you can't be financially secure and financially stable, that you will look like you have BPD, so you'll have, brightly dyed hair and facial piercings. BPD doesn't have a look.
What advice would you give to those dealing with this condition?
If you do have BPD, you're not alone. I know how that feeling is, to feel like you are isolated in your household or your community and feeling like no one understands you.
You're not a monster. You're not a bad person.
There are people out there that understand what you're going through.
There is light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope for better.
It is very possible to have a successful career, to be financially stable, to have a family, to have a loving partner.
What the BPD community needs now more than ever are empathy and understanding. The media has not made it easy on them, nor has it for Will in his unfortunate defense of the alopecia community. Was his reaction justified? We'll find out on another episode of Your Body On.